Hi everyone. So I'm doing my Carnivore Evolution series. This is the second episode. As I said in my previous episode, which was about the beginnings, I'm doing this to try to help people who, like me, have found it very confusing navigating the carnivore diet through autoimmune disorders and menopause, and I failed with certain things and certain things worked, and especially now because there is so much advice online by people in the carnivore community, and some people say go high fast, some people go low fat, and some people say do this and do that and fast, don't fast. It's just so confusing. So I'm just going through my experience, simply because my experience is not a simple one, having 3 autoimmune disorders and a genetic disorder, and having gone through the menopause while on carnivore. So it was quite a challenging way, and I've tried so many things, and just hoping that sharing this might help some people who either share some of the condition I have, or are going through the menopause, or have been through the menopause and have found it difficult to navigate the carnivore diet, simply because it is a lifestyle that is not the standard lifestyle, if you like, and I do believe that it is the one of the best ways to to nourish your body. Do I believe everybody should be a carnivore? No, I don't. There are some people who might not do very well on carnivore, and therefore that's why I keep on saying adjust your diet and your lifestyle to what suits you. The main thing for me, I think, is to give the people who want to follow the carnivore diet, who feel best on the carnivore diet, but they still have a few things that need tweaking, they can't quite work out what's wrong with them, what's not working. I'm hoping that this will give you some ideas, might resonate with you. I think, oh, that's how I feel, maybe that's what it is, maybe I'll try this, see if it works. That's all it is. I'm not saying this is how you should do it, because I say everybody's different, you have to experiment. So my first episode was about the beginning, my journey through starting, obviously being Italian, living, being raised on the Mediterranean diet, then moving on to vegetarian diet, a short stint on vegan diet when I started reacting to just about everything, and then finding keto, and then eventually carnivore. So today is more about the carnivore journey that I've had. So when I first started carnivore, I was menopausal. I was, however, in the perimenopause period. I did not know that at the time, because nobody ever sat down with me, told me what symptoms you will have in the perimenopause. So I thought once your period stopped, that's the end of it. And I didn't realize I was in the perimenopause stage, which, by the way, it can be different for different women. Some women have a very short period, and mine lasted for years. And only after I entered the menopause, I realized I was actually in perimenopause for many years, but I didn't know that at the time. So when I became carnivore in 2017, I was in perimenopause. So I wasn't perimenopausal yet. Now, initially, when I first started, as I said, I started with doing the N=1 experiment with Sean Baker, 90 days, very, very strict, not even coffee. Then I reintroduced coffee. I tried to introduce some dairy products just to vary a little bit more, fish, and I was doing fine. At the time, I was doing very high fat. I was very, very energetic. My thyroid was well under control. I used to train 7 days a week. I mean, really heavy training, including cardio. I used to fast. I used to do one a day, a meal a day. So I used to fast for 23, 24, sometimes 25 hours, depending when my training was. So by the time I used to go training, I would have been fasting for at least 17, 18 hours, and I used to be so well, energetic, never hungry. My body fat was coming down. One of the best composition of my life, body composition I've ever had in my life. I was monitoring my ketones, because at the time I was doing, as I mentioned in my previous video, I track everything. This is just something I do because I really to be anal that way. You don't have to do that, everything I do. But I used to track, I bought a keto module, which is blood glucose monitor as well as ketone monitor. And I was tracking my ketone just to try to work out what ratio, fat to protein ratio, was working best for me, which one was getting my ketones the highest. And I discovered something interesting. For me, I didn't have to do extremely high fat diet. I always was on a 1-to-1, so 1 gram of protein to 1 gram of fat would work quite well. Sometimes I would go even 1.5, 1.6 gram of protein to 1 gram of fat, so actually more on a high protein way rather than high fat. What I found was helping me with the fat loss and the ketones, getting the ketones high, was actually the fasting. So eating just 1 meal a day. And at the time, this was pre-pandemic, so I was just doing personal training, was really, really busy. So it worked out perfectly for me. I will be out, early in the morning, didn't want to eat first thing in the morning because I was out very early, going from client to client, and then I would train round about lunchtime, so 1-2 p.m. Do a very heavy session every single day, an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, which included cardio as well as weights, and then go home and have this huge meal. I used to love it, just the thought of going home and being faced with it. I used to mix it, so I would have a lot of mincemeat with some eggs, sometimes mincemeat with fish, so it was massive meal, and everything was working perfectly. My ketones were really, really high because of the fasting, because I was doing OMAD at the time. But I wasn't feeling hungry, so I wasn't losing strength in the gym. In fact, I was gaining strength. I was losing fat. Everything was going absolutely perfect. I was doing a lot of HIIT training, so high intensity interval training, as opposed to the HIIT, high intensity training, which is the weightlifting version, which is super slow training. I did try that actually. I did try that for about 3 months, and I found, number one, didn't enjoy it. I just didn't. I like the power stuff. I'm more like power based. I'm more fast twitch based. I did the DD test, and I'm more fast switch based, and that's probably explains why I enjoy more HIIT and intense and power based stuff. But I did try the high intensity training, so the super slow, slow. It make a rep, last very 30 seconds, ridiculous 1 minute, very, very, very slow rep. Just do one set and then you're completely exhausted the muscle. I did enjoy it because it was too slow for me, but most importantly, it did not make a difference to my muscle mass. I maintained what I had, but I didn't increase it, and I thought, well, there's no benefit in respect of, it's not detrimental because I didn't lose muscle, but it didn't make me put more muscle. It just maintained what I had. So if it's going to have the same impact on my physique, I'd rather do the stuff I enjoy, which is more power based, lifting weights, powering up. Slow control down, but pushing up, fast, doing power, jumping, and that kind of stuff, power, cardio. I like that, and so I might as well do something I enjoy. So that's what I was doing. So really, I would probably say I was really overtraining as well, because 7 days a week is no. If you understand the way the body works, you don't put the muscle in the gym, you put the muscle when you're resting from the gym. And I wasn't getting enough rest, but simply because I had all this energy, and I felt so good. I felt satiated all the time, energetic, everything was going well, digestion was going well, so I was happy with everything. And then I started noticing my periods started going all over the place. I will get, I've always had, when I was younger as well, I always had very, very heavy periods, very painful, very heavy. When I became vegetarian, that calmed down a little bit, which I do believe because I started eating more healthily, more fruit and vegetables, as opposed to having lots more processed stuff like pasta and pizza kind of stuff. But I've always had an estrogen dominance, and really PMS symptoms before the periods due, and then quite heavy periods that will last 7, sometimes 10 days, so really, really heavy. And then I started noticing that my period went that heavy, but I will get lots of spotting in between. Sometimes will last 27 days out of 30. I mean, it was ridiculous. My skin was a lot drier, so I couldn't work out where there was a thyroid that was gone wrong all of a sudden, and I kept on monitoring that because of the change in diet. I wanted to make sure it wasn't impacting my thyroid, the medication. I noticed there was some fluctuation in the thyroid, but when the thyroid was at good levels, my periods were still all over the place. There wasn't a cycle anymore. I could get, 2 months with nothing, and all of a sudden I would be bleeding for 2 months straight. It was all over the place. I didn't know what was happening. My mood were all over the place, and I didn't know that was the perimenopause, the beginning of the menopause. But I did notice at the time that I was feeling the symptoms of thyroid were getting worse. And again, that's why I put it down to the thyroid. So I was feeling cold all the time, was feeling more tired, started feeling more tired. Also started having cravings, some weird cravings. I hadn't had cravings since starting Carnivore. I never had any cravings at all. And all of a sudden I started craving things like cheese and butter and fatty things, or maybe not having enough fat. So I did try upping that, and I had a disastrous effect of starting making me put on a little bit of weight. So bring it back down. Monitoring the ketones were nice and high, and then they will come down, but they were high with the fast and everything. So I couldn't quite work out what it was, and I knew my thyroid was fluctuating quite a lot, but it was during the period when it was good. I still wasn't right. Everything else was out of whack still. I was feeling awful. So I couldn't quite work. My mood in particular, I went off a lot of things. I lost enjoyment in certain things. I even at one point questioned whether I was getting depressed for some unknown reason. And this was all pre-pandemic. So it's not like, okay, during pandemic you're locked in, you get depressed. That was well pre-pandemic. It was a little bit weird. And then all of a sudden, I started putting on weight. For no reason. I didn't change what I eaten. I didn't increase my food quantity. I was still training a lot, but I almost looked like I was just putting on weight quickly for no reason. And I thought, what the hell? I know the first reaction you have, cut the food, which is what we do, especially women. We start putting on weight. We don't like that, and I couldn't work. As I said, it's got to be the thyroid. So I decided to contact my endocrinologist, the private one that was giving me the thyroid medication. We weren't due for a consultation yet, but I wasn't feeling right. And I said, well, can we just check everything else because of the other hormones? Because I think something's out of whack here. I need to know what it is to know how I can fix it. Yeah. So we did all the blood tests. We checked all the hormones, including menopause hormones and everything, with the estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, thyroid, and adrenals. And when the results came back, she told me, you're almost off out. I mean, you're almost at all rock bottom, every single one of them, including the thyroid. And I go, but how can it be possible? I mean, I'm taking my medication. And she said, well, she then asked me what symptoms I've been having. I told her about what's happening with periods, and she goes, well, it sounds like you're entering the menopause. And from the blood test, it looked like I was actually in the menopause, the early stages of the menopause, because they look at specific hormones to determine that. But she said your estrogen and progesterone are rock bottom. Your testosterone almost non-existent. And they're dragging down your thyroid. So even though you're taking medication, when all the other hormones are down, they're dragging down your thyroid. And that's, what are you supposed to do? I mean, she said, well, we need to put you on hormone replacement therapy. And I go, oh, I don't like taking medication, especially when it comes to, I'm a firm believer that the body is a great organism machine. It knows what it needs and it knows how to fix itself. And there is a reason why we go through the menopause. We're not supposed to have estrogen and progesterone high all the time. The body has to wind down. That's part of life, And I said, well, all women in the past have been able to survive, and even thrive without hormones, without hormone replacement therapy. So why do we, in this day and age, need these kind of hormones? I mean, why can't we just let the body do what it needs to do? And at the time, the endocrinologist explained to me there's two issues. Number one, our life these days is a lot more stressful than it used to be 40, 50, 60 years ago. Yeah. Our level of stress is so much higher. And once you go into menopause, your ovaries shut down because there's no more ovulation. They don't produce the hormones, estrogen, progesterone. They don't produce those hormones anymore because that cycle is finished. There's no more children, there's no fertility, is gone. And that job is up to the adrenals. And, stress impacts adrenals because the more stressed are you, the more the adrenals are worked, to try for the body to compensate with between cortisol, adrenals, adrenaline, and, adjusting everything. And add to that the fact that now the adrenals have to deal with producing the female hormones, and even testosterone, all of the hormones. And the adrenals get exhausted and then everything collapses, and in today's day and age, because of stress of life a lot higher than they used to be in the older, especially even recently with the cost of living. I mean, that's even something else. The pandemic brought on a huge amount of stress on everyone. The cost of living that is bringing to this day, a lot of stress. And those are factors, unfortunately, we can't control. But what we can control is what we do to help our body, deal with them. And for women, once they enter menopause, unfortunately, the adrenal had to cope with all this alongside with making the hormones and the stress and everything. And in my case in particular, she said, well, listen, if you didn't have an issue with the thyroid, I would say, okay, do what you want. If you don't want your hormones, that's fine. You'll have to put up with not feeling 100% of the time. So the problem with the thyroid is that your other hormones will be dragging down your thyroid. Then it doesn't matter how much medication you take, it will not have the effect that it needs. You're going to feel bad, and you can't afford to have your thyroid being dragged down because that is very serious medical condition. Therefore, she said we need to try, but we agreed that we would try on something called bioidentical hormones. So basically, it's like a lozenge that is made specific to the person. So you do the blood test, you see what you're low on, which hormones, and then they make this lozenge with the amount of hormones that you actually require. So I had lozenge they included some testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and DHEA, which is the adrenal hormone. And we try them, and then every 3 months we were testing to see how things were going on. And for the first year or so, I was doing very well with them. No reactions, I got my energy back. I thought, oh, everything's working. My thyroid was happy, it was going back up, the levels were going back up. So everything was good. And then all of a sudden, I started getting reaction to those. Mainly skin reactions, started getting itchiness. Sometimes I was getting some joint pains, and I couldn't work out what it was. Again, I thought maybe it's this menopause that's causing this. But I decided, knowing, because I like to experiment, and that's why I recommend people do experiments, I decided to stop the hormones because I thought, what has changed? What has changed in the last period that could have caused this? Now, my diet was the same. I didn't introduce new food. Everything was the same. I even had decreased the amount of training I was doing in the gym because obviously once the endocrinologist explained to me that my adrenals were being taxed by the stress level, by the hormones, and if I did 7 days in the gym, it wasn't the best scenario. So I need to have some relaxed time, so I reduced my gym training session to 5 days a week, and the other 2 days I would take it just to try to chill and do nothing, just relax. Which, by the way, was good for muscle building as well, because as I say, you do need your rest days to build a muscle. You don't build a muscle in the gym, you build them while you're resting. Yeah. So I said, okay, let's try then not taking the hormone. I want to see how I feel without taking them. And I stopped taking them, and actually all these little rashes that were coming on disappeared. And I go, so it's the hormones, it's the pills that was taking this lozenge there to let melt in my mouth. That causing the problem. So I stopped taking them for 3 months, and just to see what it was without telling the endocrinologist, because I knew she would say, no, don't do that, but I wanted to try that. And after 3 months, I contacted the endocrinologist and said, listen, I've stopped taking this 3 months ago, and because they would give me reactions, and actually I feel fine. And she ran a blood test, and the blood test showed that some the hormones had come down a little bit, but not actually back down to what they were before. So she said, I will not recommend this, continue not taking that. But if you feel better, you want to sit it out for a while, give your body a break, and then we can try maybe a different combination rather than bioidentical hormones. A lozenge, we'll try some patches, we'll try different pills, separate progesterone, estrogen, maybe lower levels of estrogen. Also, because I was taking the medication, apart from the rash I was getting, I was also getting very bad PMS symptoms, tender breast, bloating. You have that mental state when you feel like your period is coming, and I wasn't having that before taking the medication. So I thought, this is making me feel like I'm going through the period again, PMS again, and don't like this one. So she said, well, if you feel the symptoms you're getting with the hormone replacement therapy is worse than what you feel, then we can stop. But we need to monitor the thyroid to make sure she's not start getting dragged down again, because that's the issue. So I came off that, and then I started noticing as well at the same time. I started noticing I'm doing perimenopause, but further on in this period, which was the early menopause. I started getting cravings. I mean, my cravings getting ridiculous, but it wasn't sweet cravings. That's the interesting thing. And I think it's mainly because I've been carnivore for over a year. If you don't have sugar for over a year, the cravings shouldn't go. But I was craving dairy product, and I knew I couldn't take dairy product, because if I take dairy product, then I'm going to have stomach problems, either diarrhea, stomach cramps, I feel uncomfortable, I feel unwell. But I was getting these awful cravings, and I said, listen, forget it, I need to have some dairy here, and I started having dairy. And then I thought, very little at the time, and I was okay. Then I thought, maybe it's time for me to try to introduce some veggies. Maybe in the menopause, my body requires those, so I try to use the vegetable that you normally will have during keto. So you got I stayed away from the cauliflower broccoli, because I knew they will give me problems, digestive problems. So I just concentrated on something like asparagus, spinach, that kind of vegetables, and zucchini, and I was okay. It was okay for a while, and then I started getting really bad hives. I mean, I never suffered from hives, and all of a sudden I would get itchy. But it was so weird, because I would wake up and I would start scratching, and I would get like a spread of hive on one side, and then we'll get it on the other side, like symmetrical. And I know when I get reaction of that symmetrical, whether there's symmetrical joint pains or symmetrical itching and rashes, is the autoimmune. So I said, what is flailing my autoimmune now? What the hell is going on here? And I thought, should I go back on the hormones? Maybe it's the hormones, because I come off the hormones, I drop down, and this gives me all these symptoms. I don't know what's going on. So I decided I wanted to try re-eliminating everything. So maybe the veggies are not healthy, because I knew from the previous experience when I eliminated them that the veggies were causing me problems. So I said, eliminate the veggies, and I still had the cheese at this time, and sit it out, see what happens. And I kept on getting, either I was getting, it was very weak, so I was getting joint pains, but not your typical joint like the knees, the hips. My joint pains were wrist, elbows, and ankles, and it would be right and left together, hurting at the same time, both wrists, both ankles, and it was very weird. I said, what the hell is this? So that's got to be autoimmune, because it's symmetrical, it's very weird thing. It's not arthritis or anything like that. And I said, okay, maybe it's the dairy, because we know from the autoimmune protocol, immune system, if you've got symmetrical thing, you think is immune driven, then autoimmune protocol, you should not have dairy products, especially for celiac. It's not a very good idea. So let's eliminate the dairy products. And I started feeling a little bit better, but I still wasn't feeling right. I was still feeling really, really tired. The cravings for dairy were really, really bad. Headaches, my sleep started going all over the place. Normally, I've always been a very good sleeper, but I just couldn't sleep properly. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I was getting this weird feeling. It was almost like pins and needles, but it was almost like electric shock, starting from my core, running down the legs. And it was really weird. And I thought, what the hell is this? It's just very weird feeling. very weird sensation. I couldn't work out what the hell was going on. I thought, I got really, really close to contacting the doctor. I said, well, let's go back on the hormones. And I thought, no, I need to try something else. I need to reset my body first. And if this doesn't work, then, we'll contemplate going back on the hormones. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking HRT, don't get me wrong. It's just that I don't like it. I believe that the body has its own natural path and it can fix itself when it needs to fix itself. I don't particularly think menopause is a problem that you need to fix. Menopause is part of the human cycle for women. And, as I said, we've gone through that for centuries and, and it's been the way of life. So I don't think we should try to lift hormones when our body's trying to go down, to cool down. It doesn't want those hormones up. We also know that too high estrogen can drive some cancers as well. So it's all the kind of worry there. Everything we do when we mess up with our hormones, from the contraceptive pill to the HRT, are things that we have to be very careful with, because we're altering what our body is trying to. Our body is always aiming at keeping a balance, an equilibrium, what we call homeostasis. So if something goes out of whack, the body will react to try to bring everything back in balance. And as I said, there is a reason why you go through the menopause and your hormones come down. It's because the body says, okay, enough childbearing, we're not doing that anymore, we're finished, the body's not in a state where I can take this. You don't need those hormones anymore, lower them down. Yes, it's true, we feel worse. And yes, it's true, you put on weight. I mean, I experienced that myself. I was literally ballooning. It was very weird, because it was almost like, it's difficult to explain. It wasn't like weight, like heaviness. It was like mass. It was almost like you were bloating, like literally like a balloon, like almost I could feel my legs getting bigger. I could see them getting bigger, but my weight on the scale wasn't more, but I was getting bigger in dress size. So clearly I was putting on fat. And I was saying, how is that possible? I'm not eating more, I'm moving the same, I'm trying to stress less, and this should all be helping. So it is true, the menopause does make, because of the fluctuation in hormones, can have an impact on making you gain weight initially. But the solution is not to go on a drastic diet, believe me, because you do that and you cause a world of damage. You go on a extreme diet, which normally means, especially for me, cut fat, and then your hormones tank even more, and then you're in deep. Yeah, I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I mean, okay? So dieting is not the solution. So what I decided to do, okay, reset the body. How do I reset the body? Some people say, oh, I'm going to do detox, liver detox. The liver detox itself. The liver this job is the detox, So you don't need to take all these juices, potion or concoction no. How do you detox on a carnivore diet? Well, simple. You go back to basic: meat and water and salt. So I cut out everything that wasn't red meat. Just red meat. So particularly I like beef anyway. And so no fish, no eggs, no dairy, nothing else. I did keep coffee, I gotta say, because it's one of the things that unfortunately I can't give up. I know I will benefit from giving it up. But I have actually tried to give it. Gave it up for the initial 90 days of the carnivore and one experiment, because it demanded, should be clear carnivore, proper carnivore. I did give it up, and I felt awful. I didn't feel any better. Some people say after a while you start feeling more energetic. No, I never felt more energetic. I felt like crap. The whole 3 months, as soon as it was over, the coffee went back on the list. So no, I'm sorry. I like my espresso. I'm Italian. Shoot me. I don't care. I mean, as a plant, who cares? I'm not carnivore for the name. I'm animal based. I do what my body needs. I don't do what people say you should be doing if you want to be carnivore. I don't care, because then you're not better than vegans. Sorry. If you start telling you're not doing it properly, because I don't care. Go and live your life. Just let me live mine. The way I feel is right. So Yeah, kept coffee, but I went just back to red meat. Um, Salt, because I like my meat salty. I'm sorry. I like it cooked and I like it salty. I don't like raw meat. You know, if you like raw meat, good for you. I don't. Okay, so I'm gonna cook my meat, and I don't care if you tell me it's gonna lose some of the nutrient. Well, I'm here after 6 years still standing. You know, and while at the beginning I was having a lot of organ meat, I don't anymore. So, and oh, lo and behold, I'm standing. Oh my goodness, how can is that possible? We're supposed to eat 5 a day. We're supposed to eat organ meat. We're supposed to not cook two things too much. Well, rubbish. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, there are so many voices out there. People say you should be doing this, you should be doing that. No, okay, you do what works for you. That's the bottom line. Okay, so now back to that. Now they call that the lion diet. I mean, those days it was just you eat meat. It was a name for that. Again, we like to give names to everything, but it's basically was. I went back to minced beef, salt, water, and my coffee in the morning. Which, by the way, when my coffee is espresso, yeah. So there's no milk or anything. It's just espresso. There is no sugar. That's it. That's what. And that's what. By the way, that's what I go back to every time something goes wacky. Yeah, and I will explain in the future episode when I cover the pandemic, what happened after I got the virus. Every time something goes wacky, I find the best thing to do is to go back to basic. So what they call elimination diet. So go back to the basic. Go just back to the red meat, salt and water. Go back to that for at least a month. I normally tend to do it for at least 2 to 3 months, to be honest with you. And then slowly reintroduce the things that you like to eat to see how you react, engage, whether you're still reacting to them, and see where you stand. And that's exactly what I did. So I went back to basic and did that for, how long did I do that? I think I did it for 2 months this time around. Just the meat, and it cleared everything. I was fine. But at the end of the second month, I said, okay, 2 months, I'm clear, everything's good. That means that I don't need the hormones. Yeah. And so I started reintroducing some of the food that I like, which mainly eggs, really, because I tend to eat meat, fish, and eggs. Now, my meat, I would love to be able to eat just steaks. I don't like steaks. for somebody who eats carnivore, red meat only mainly, is to say they don't like steak is quite an statement. I just don't like the fat in the steaks, consistency. So I eat mainly minced meat. Yeah, so it's ground beef, called in America, whatever you want. It's been, it's big, but it is steak that's been ground. It's not all the scraps of the animal. Plus, in the UK, we are lucky enough that our cows tend to be raised on pastures for most of their life. Yeah. So we don't get hormones in them. There's very strict regulations about that kind of stuff in the UK when we used to be part of Europe, but we still maintain those regulations. We don't get that kind of feedlot kind of animal. So even the one in the supermarket is very good quality normally. And I would love to go and buy meat from the butcher. Unfortunately, it's always too expensive, and at the end of the day, you got to eat what you can afford, isn't it? So go as healthy as you can and what you can afford. So I tend to have my minced meat. I tend to have, depending on what I'm trying to achieve. So when I was in the period of the early menopause, I was having the fatty cattle meat, which would normally be 15% fat, 1585. Sometimes I tried the 20%, but I found that there is something in my body that doesn't like too much fat, and when I reach a certain level, I just run to the toilet. It just goes right through me, and that's just pointless because then it's all gone right through you. It's done. You absorb nothing. Yeah, and I find with the 20% meat, although I love the taste of that, I absolutely love the taste of 20% beef because the fat is so nice. I mean, it's more flavor. But my gut doesn't like it. I mean, I will tolerate it for 1 or 2 days, and then I'm in the loo straight away. So I find the 15% fat is the most I can tolerate in meat. But what I do, I love eggs. I mean, I'm the kind of person who can eat eggs until the cows come home, literally. But as I said, I've got a tolerance limit to the eggs, unfortunately, which probably may be just the egg white. But I've tried taking the egg white and the egg yolk as well, I still get some side effects. So I think it's something, the egg itself, that my body doesn't like. So I have to ration them, if you like. So when I reintroduce the egg, so obviously when you introduce something from a diet where you try to, from an elimination diet where you try to work out what's wrong, what's not working for you, then you must reintroduce one item at the time, and ideally wait for 2 weeks to see how your body reacts to the item before introducing another one. Yeah. So the first one I introduced was eggs because I love eggs, and the yolk has got so much nutrition there that is, really, who needs fruit and vegetables, to be quite honest. Yeah. So I introduced eggs, and I started to introduce initially just a couple of eggs a day, just to see how I was doing, and I was absolutely fine. And then I increased it to 3 eggs a day, and I was good. Then I increased to 4 eggs a day, and that's when I started having days when I was okay, and days when I wasn't quite so good. I get with eggs, if I have too much, I start getting what looks like hives, but I think it's more like dermatitis periformis, which is a form of celiac on the skin, like a rash kind of thing. And I only get that with eggs in certain points, so it's very weird. So I know my tolerance is somewhere between 3 and 4 eggs a day. So I tend to stick it to 3 days. So I did that, reduced the eggs, that was good. And then I tried to introduce some dairy, that didn't work, so I left that. Especially after elimination diet, if you have got a little bit sensitive to dairy, you will really feel it, because the whole idea of elimination diet is that it resets your body, and then when it gets rid of all these antibodies you got for the food that your body doesn't like, and then when you introduce them, you have an even bigger reaction to the food because you haven't had it for a while. Yeah. So I reintroduced fish, mainly fatty fish and mackerel, salmon, the kind of fish, because there's no point having white fish, really. There's not enough nutrients in there. There's protein, great, but there's not other nutrients, not much nutrients there. So I'd rather have fatty fish, so it works better, for the body. And I was fine with fish. So really I ended up going back on carnivore with minced meat, minced beef. I also had lamb, by the way, minced lamb. Sometimes there is a thing that they do in the shop near here, Lidl, that is got mixed between minced beef and minced pork. Yeah. And that's gorgeous. It tastes really nice, especially if you put some egg in it as well. Scrambled egg is gorgeous. But again, because it's got higher fat content, I have to be very careful with that, otherwise I'm in the toilet after a while. So I managed to find my balance again. Everything was good for a while. And then I started getting those symptoms again, feeling very tired, the cravings coming on again, the joint pain, autoimmune reactions. And I said, what? No, how is it possible? I can't just have to live just on beef for the rest of my life, beef only. And I thought that was odd. So I decided, let me just try to go back on HRT. Now that I introduced everything, I'm fine with that, but I'm getting these weird symptoms. Let me just go back on HRT for a while, because by then I'd been off it for almost a year. And I said, let's see whether we can try a different version of HRT. I went to the endocrinologist. She gave me, she said, okay, let's give you the lowest possible dose of estrogen, again on the form tablet side, and I'm going to give you progesterone to take separately. In the evening, that will help you with sleep. And let's do that. Don't take anything else. Oh no, she gave me actually a topical cream for testosterone. I'm very I'm very skeptical about creams, because I don't think they get absorbed quite deep enough to make a difference. But I said, hey, if it doesn't go through my stomach, it's probably better, because my stomach doesn't like that kind of stuff. So let's try it that way. And I went back on that, and I started feeling better again. So I thought, okay, so it was the hormones, and maybe I had to stay on HRT again. And everything was good. The training increased. I learned to do a little bit more of me time, whereby my me time is do things that I enjoy doing. So I like walking and stuff like that. Less impactful things, not spending 2 hours in the gym. I started learning to maximize my time in the gym and not to do cardio same time as weight. So I will do my weight sessions, and then I will do cardio on separate days, so that my training days in the gym were all weight and cardio. Yeah. And again, the cardio wasn't the I stopped doing not the very high impact stuff, like bounding and box jumps and that kind of sledge pull and push, the heavy kind of stuff. I started doing the gentler kind of cardio, like stairmaster, that kind of stuff, because I found that I did feel the stress a lot more during this period. And I think the menopause does that, because there's so much pressure on the body, there's so much stress on the body from these hormones having to be produced by the adrenals, that you do learn to the importance of minimizing your stress. And you do feel that when you at least I personally felt that when especially when I started the menopause, if I was there was something happening in life that was particularly stressful, I did feel literally my cravings going up. I did feel my mood going down. I did feel it was really affecting me in other ways, and I learned that the best way to try to control this craving, the moods, and the autoimmune rushes and reaction was actually to find me time to relax. I discovered that I love doing, I like massage, but I always used to do for the very hard one. You're like, it's everything but relaxing. You're like, oh my God, this kills me. They touch and they dig into you and they put the elbows in, and it was bloody painful. I found this hot stone massage. And it was completely different. It opened a new world to me, because the hospital, for somebody who's got underactive thyroid and Hashimoto, I'm always cold. Yeah. So you put warm stone on me, I'm like, oh, this is heaven. I already relax. And then they go in and start massaging you, and it's not like, the nasty one that you're like, oh, yes, it's good for me. It's good for me. It's good for me. I got to take it because it's good for me. No, it's not good for me. It's stressing me out. It might be good for my muscle, but it's really stressing me out. I look tense like that. Relax your muscle. I can't. It's too painful. Well, with the hot stone, the warm rocks relax you, because it puts you in a nice mood. And then they massage you. And it's still a firm massage. I mean, obviously, do as firm as you like it. And I do like it quite firm. But it's not that digging into that you gotta break this knot and go for it, and you're like, oh my God, when is this over? It's not. This was like, oh my God, I love this. I'm gonna come back. And I found it helps. And look, walks. Oh my God, walks are this so understated form of activity. You have no idea how much fun you can lose just walking regularly. But that's something I will go into in one of my next episodes, further episode, when I'm covering the pandemic and that affected everything. So basically, to summarize what happened during this period. So perimenopause, I was at the time was doing very well, 1 meal a day, monitor my ketones. I was doing fasting but full of energy, and having very, very big meal, 7 days a week, training, very intense training in the gym, weight wise, as well as cardio, power training, all that kind of stuff. Then almost, I started feeling unwell. I felt a bit off. My period went all over the place, and I thought, what's going on? I knew something wasn't right. We tested the hormones. My hormones had tanked, and it was it was clear indication I was into menopause, the early stages of the menopause. And then, I started literally getting bigger without changing my habits, the cravings, the mood changes, the autoimmune reaction, flare-ups, trying to introduce some veggies to see if it made a difference. It made no difference whatsoever. Then going on to what they call today lion diet, which is basically just going back to basics, meat only, salt and water, to reset, come off all the hormones that HRT gave me, reset my body with a lion diet, reintroduce some foods, and then eventually, after about a year not taking the hormone replacement therapy, those symptoms came back despite the fact everything else was fine. Then having to go back on the hormones, trying different type of hormones, topical cream for testosterone, and trying estrogen and progesterone separate, lower doses, and see how that worked. And that started, that brought me back to some balance, and I started feeling well again. I was training, but then I learned the most important lesson I learned during the menopause, the early stage of menopause, was really the stress control. You need to control your stress level. And I don't know, for an Italian, I'm very atypical because in Italy everything's chilled. I just come back from Italy. We've been over there for a week, to introduce my granddaughter to her great-granddad for the first time. Bless her, she was born under lockdown, so it was the first time she's been on a plane. She's met my family. But in Italy, everything is like, the moment you come off the plane, it's like, and breathe. It's just so weird. It's the pace of life is slower, and you feel yourself having to slow down, and you benefit so much from that feeling, from that slowing down of life, and as soon as you come back here, you're like a maniac running around on the motorway, driving and running around. I've got to do this, got to do that, and I think, why? This is what my endocrinologist was telling me. The 2 days lifestyle is like this, at least in this country, and at least if you got to work, if you're fortunate enough to stay home do nothing, then you might not be stressed up. If you got to work and you got to earn a living, and your bills are sky high and everything, this is how you're feeling at the moment. You're pretty stressed out, and because of that, then that's why our hormones need a little bit of help post menopause, during the menopause and period after menopause. Because we, the adrenals can't cope with everything. The level of stress we have in our life nowadays, alongside having to make the hormones that before would be made by the ovaries, so it's, stress control, mediating, learning how to manage stress management is possibly one of the best skills you can learn when you hit the menopause, because it makes all the difference. Because if you're stressed at the end of the day, if you don't control your stress levels, you're going to eat more because your craving is going to go up. Your body's going to crave fuel to keep you awake, to give you the energy, because you're going to feel run down when you're stressed out. Your adrenals are completely stressed out. You want something that gives you fuel, and guess what? That kind of thing would be sugary things, or maybe if you you're very high fat stuff, which your body may not be able to cope with, but then it will make you put on weight. Because let's be frank, my experience in the menopause is that if I eat high fat, I will put on weight so quickly. You just got time to blink and I put on 10 kilos. It's that bad. So, for all the carnivores people out there saying, oh, you should up your fat during menopause. Well, so what? You up your fat and see what happens. I followed that advice, unfortunately, and it did not do very well for me. In fact, it caused complete chaos. I put on weight, and it's taken me now over 6 months to try to take it off. So that's because I was following what everybody would say. Oh, you gotta put high fat, especially after menopause, is good for you. No. So your body, the way your body reacts to fat is completely different. The way the body reacts to food and to activity and to stress is completely different in the menopause. That's why I keep on saying you must try things out. You got to find out what works for you, but you cannot find out what works for you unless you are prepared to track things. You got to write them down. You got to write down what you're doing, what you're eating. As I say, you can write down as grams, ounces, whatever you want to put it down as, but write down, how much protein, how much fat you're having. Or you can use one of those calorie counters, apps like my Fitness Pal, Chronometer. Just bear in mind that don't give too much importance to what the calorie says. You want to concentrate on what the macros are, so your fat versus protein ratio, so they can work out, do you need to up the fat or lower the fat to get the result that you need? How do you feel when you up or lower fat? I would say keep your protein constant. You don't want to reduce protein. I know with ketogenesis, with the ketogenic diet, there's a lot of stress put on the fat and keeping the protein low. I would say you need to have a bare minimum amount of protein, and a bare minimum I would say is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That is if you're not obese. Ideal body weight if you're overweight. or if you're not overweight but like me, you're menopausal and you're trying to control your body, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, if you are the right weight for yourself. I actually eat a lot more than that. I found that for me, I have to have a ratio about 1.6 gram of protein per gram of fat for me to feel full, so I don't get too hungry. With me, I find the society is driven by protein rather than by fat, but different people feel different. Some people feel higher fat fills them up more. Some people feel the higher protein fills them up more. There is, I think, a point where you have to be careful if you go too low fat and too high protein. I've been there. And it's not fun either. So it's you end up with massive cravings. You end up binging because you're undernourished, completely undernourished. You got too much protein, not enough fat, especially when you're not eating carb, like on a carnivore diet, then you're asking for trouble. Yeah. So that's why I say you have to experiment. But from a point of view of the carnivore during the pre and in the early menopause stages, I would say my best advice I can give you is manage your stress, find ways of distressing things that distress you, that you enjoy doing. And I will also say another thing that I didn't mention actually is cut back on your fasting. I find in menopause, fasting is not a good idea. It actually creates more cravings and it puts more stress on the body. Remember, stress is not our friend, especially during menopause. So it's another stressor that we don't need. Like dieting is a stressor, so don't go on low calorie diets, please. But you need to stay active. I think it's very important to stay active during the menopause period as well, because we will have a tendency, especially if the hormones are not controlled, have a tendency to store more fat, put weight. And if you eating real food, like on a carnivore diet, and if you are staying active and controlling your stress, there is no reason why you should not have normal body weight. I've got normal body weight and I've got 3 autoimmune disorders, a genetic disorder and postmenopausal. But I got here through trial and error. Yeah, so testing and retesting and a lot of blood tests as well, private blood tests, because obviously with the thyroid there to monitor things. As I said, it's not just the case of me saying, well, I don't want to take HRT. I'll deal with the hormones being low. I can't do that because they're dragging down the thyroid and I can't afford to do that because it's actually a serious medical condition. I'm in and out of hormones, so take them for a while, then I have to stop them, take them for a while, stop. That's how it's working for me, and it's an ever-changing situation. So there will never be a time when you say, okay, this is what works and I'm going to keep with this for the rest of my life. Especially in menopause and post-menopause, to be honest with you, your body keeps on changing, and also your lifestyle, the pressure from life change all the time, and that will impact your hormone levels, which will then impact how your body reacts to everything, to food, how you put on weight, how you feel, how you sleep, and all that kind of stuff. That is all connected. So the best thing you can do, as I say, for menopause in the carnivore diet is try to stay as close to basic as possible. If you feel that you'll be out of control, it might not be a bad idea to go back to the basics, so meat only, red meat, whatever red meat you like, with salt, a little bit of salt. Whether you like it raw cooked is up to you, but eliminate everything else. Just go back to that for a while. I'll bet minimum a month, but if you can do 2 or 3 months, big deal. And then slowly reintroduce foods just to give your body time to rebalance itself. In the old days before the menopause, I would have used fasting to reset myself. I can't do that now because I've learned if I do now, it will lead to disordered eating and binging and craving, and then eventually giving up on the craving, ending up having a whole lot of dairy products and then paying the consequence of that for weeks on end. If you're not menopausal yet and you like fasting, that's one way of resetting your body, giving your digestive system a break. Otherwise, is to try the resetting it through elimination, just going back to basic on the carnivore, just red meat and water only. I will say one thing about fasting though, which I think it is worth mentioning, is what is called intermittent fasting. Okay, so I don't understand who coined this term or where it came from, but the reality is this: you either fast or you don't fast. Intermittent fasting, but that's what they call when you're eating within a window. But I'm sorry, but that's eating. It's not fasting. So because we are so screwed up with the way our life is nowadays. We eat, we got food, we don't have to stretch too long before we can reach a piece of food somewhere. We saw most of the time, unfortunately, is processed crap. We call not eating for 10-12 hour fasting. No, that's not fasting. That is just the normal cycle. You eat during the day. You can have 3 meals or as many as you want to eat. You eat during the day. At night you sleep. That's not fasting. That's sleeping. And when people started saying, "Oh yeah, but if you can do 12-hour fasting, 6 hours." No, I mean you're eating at least once a day. Then that's normal thing. You're just giving your stomach a break. So actually, that's a very good way of doing it. If you eat time restricted eating, which is a better term rather than intermittent fasting, time restricted eating. So you only eat within a period of time, and then the rest of the time, let's say you eat over a period of 10 hours, and then you got 14 hours you don't eat, which includes your sleep time as well. That will give your digestive system a break. So that's another nice way of try to let it reset itself. So that is, if you can tolerate that, that's great. I found out that before, as I say, I used to do one meal a day during my premenopause period. I used to love it. I used to thrive on that, not eating for 19, 20, 23 hours. I used to train at the time. I had so much energy. It was great. Once the menopause hit, I found that if I tried to do a period of time when I wasn't eating that length of time, it will bring cravings on for me, mainly for dairy products, because that's my weakness. That's my chocolate, if you like, in the carnivore term. So people are made for chocolate, I'm made for dairy products. So that's why I find that fasting doesn't work very well. But having said that, I always find that I have my best sleep when I finish my last meal early. So if I finish, for example, if I have my last meal by 5 p.m. or even at the latest 6 p.m. and I don't eat until I wake up the following morning at 6, I feel great. I have a great night's sleep. If I eat 8 o'clock, if I finish eating at 8 o'clock, I don't sleep as well. But because of the way life is at the moment, with the pandemic and everything that's happened, we couldn't do personal training at all. I had to start working for, being an employee. So I worked for a year and a half in the pandemic with NHS 111, which was quite an experience, to be honest. But I learned a lot there, both medically and, how to deal with certain things, which was very, very, very helpful as well for me. And then eventually, even once we reopened and the demand wasn't there anymore, then I take a daytime job, an office job. So what happens, that has thrown out my habits, because I used to like to train in the morning. So I would have my breakfast, go to train, do clients and everything. And then, I used to have my biggest meal, lunch, used to have 2 meals a day. My biggest meal, lunch, being about 2:33, and that was fine. Yeah. Now, because I'm working, so I find I do a breakfast early in the morning to get to work, and then I have lunch at work, and then when I come home, I go train in the gym. When I come back from the gym, I'm hungry. I cannot have a proper meal there, because it's too late for me. And if I had the proper meal at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, I will not sleep at night. So what I tend to do, I have literally 3 hard-boiled eggs, like that, with nothing else. I just eat them like that, and I find that gives me a little bit of boost, post-workout, and it doesn't affect my sleep. So again, it's adjusting things, to what works. And obviously, at the weekend when I'm off, I don't have the problem, So it's I will finish eating nice and early, and then I have a longer break, before I go to bed, and then I sleep well, So, but that is not fasting. That is sleeping time, It's just funny how we call things not eating for, 5-6 hours. We call it fasting. I mean, since when? I mean, our great grandparents they used to eat for hours and hours on end, and didn't call it fasting. It just was normal. So because we're so used to stuffing our face every 5 minutes, that if you don't eat for 6 hours, you're fasting for 6 hours. No, you're digesting all the crap you've eaten before. So but it's just one of the things anyway. Okay, so this was the one about the menopause. So I hope that some of the information was helpful. Namely this, controlling the stress, and obviously get your hormones checked if you have any symptoms that you're a bit concerned about. And then the HRT on and off again, that's a test, trial and error. And unfortunately now they do offer HRT on the NHS. The problem with the HRT on the NHS, and the reason why I keep on using my private endocrinologist, is because the NHS is one fits all, yeah? So they give you a pill that contains progesterone and estrogen in a set amount. Well, that can either be good for you or can be very bad for you or be indifferent, because they treat everybody the same. We all got different issues, different way our body responds to things. I mean, I know from personal experience that the HRT I have to take has got the lowest possible amount of estrogen, because if I have a little bit too much estrogen, I just start getting all the PMS symptoms. So the pill from NHS will completely throw me out, will give me massive PMS symptoms, it'll be like having my periods again. And it will not work at all for me. And also find that if you have progesterone in the evening, rather than having them together in a combined pill, if you have progesterone separately, if you have progesterone, especially in the evening before bedtime, it actually helps with sleep. So that's why I don't go to the NHS. Yes, it means I have to pay for my prescription. However, you know what? I'd rather not have the latest technology or the latest handbag or Gucci things, and have something that's going to help my body stay healthy as long as possible. I mean, it's decisions you make, isn't it? It's your choices. I choose my health over, the latest gadget. So what? That's how I spend my money. You choose what you want. What's more important to you? Is your health, or, having the latest fancy things that somebody else can look at and you can brag about? I don't know. To me, it's my health, because at the end of the day, if you haven't got your health, you've got nothing. But that's where I see that. Okay, so that's it. I would love some comments. I hope some of the information I gave you might help somebody. And the next episode I'm going to do will be the one about post-menopause, how things change, because as I say, menopause, I started the early menopause and doing the menopause and the post-menopause, things change, didn't stay the same. And then there will be more episode further down with how the catching the virus affected me on a carnivore diet with the autoimmune, caught it twice, and eventually how I got to here, what I've tried recently, and what's working and what I'm doing, and any other bits and tips I can give you if you want to be on carnivore, if you want to try the carnivore diet, you try everything else, you haven't, but you don't know where to start because you're hearing all this conflicting information. I'm just giving you my personal experience with the condition I've got. This is me, N01, yeah, that's me. But I'm trying to give you ideas of what you can look out for if you're having similar symptoms. Perhaps you should start be asking yourself a question: is this perhaps that's what it is? Maybe test yourself and then try some of these strategies, to see whether that can help you. And if that helps even just one person, that would be worthwhile. Okay, well, thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.